Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 21 of SuperSports, the review series for the vehicles which sit quite nicely between sports cars and full-on supercars. And in this episode we're featuring definitely one of my favourite cars of this series, if not my favourite. It's the 1990 4th generation Corvette ZR-1. Now, we will be featuring two variants of this 4th generation Corvette in this series, the ZR-1 and the Gran Sport. And the problem for the ZR-1, or one of the problems that it experiences, is the fact that the Gran Sport is a much more eye-catching vehicle. You notice it much easier in the dealerships due to the bright blue paint with the white stripe. This car is tucked away down in a corner of the dealership where you can very easily overlook it. It doesn't particularly look that special, it just looks like a Corvette. It doesn't have eye-catching wings or crazy body modifications. It's a relatively understated car. It's a very 80s shape, arguably one of the most 80s cars ever made. It really is totally 80s. Its interior, its look, everything about it really is 80s. And this is one of the very last Corvettes built, being the 1990 model. Now, Corvettes are known in real life as being very competitive, and on Gran Turismo as well, for being very, very fast, very competitive, and also very, very good value for money. And this car is no exception to that. Now, this car does cost a little bit more than some of the newer Corvettes. This is an 82,000 credit car, making it more expensive than even the C7 Stingray. Now, is it really worth that price? Should you buy this car instead of, or perhaps as well as, the C7, or even the C6, or the C5? The C6, of course, especially the ZR1, is a massively popular supersports car on Gran Turismo. One of the most popular, in fact. So is this car really justified? Is it worth buying? Well, I would personally say definitely yes, just from a personal point of view. But if you're talking facts, I would also say yes. Because with that 82 grand price, that means it's one of the most affordable supersports cars in this series. It's not the cheapest, but it is one of the best priced models, considering that something like a Spiker, for instance, will set you back the best part of $250,000 credits. Now, as far as spec, this car is powered by what used to be pretty much the highest level of engine capacity that the Corvettes would have in their, say, 4th and pretty much all of the 5th generation of 5.7 litres. It's a supercharged engine when fully tuned, a V8, fairly obviously. It's rear-wheel drive, and it puts out over 800 horsepower fully tuned. It's actually 811, and it puts out over 700 pound-feet of torque. Now, the Corvette isn't a particularly heavy car in any of its generations, and this car is no exception to that. It only weighs under 1,300 kilos. It's actually just over 1,280, and it puts out a pretty decent 633 horsepower per tonne. What about actual performance though? Because with some vehicles on Gran Turismo, especially non-premiums, you can never be too sure as to whether they will actually deliver the performance that they should have. The perfect example of that is the Callaway C12, which I reviewed a few weeks ago in my Ultimate Exotic series. That car has the spec of a Corvette, but no way near the performance that you'd expect of a vehicle like that. And there are other notable vehicles like that as well, such as the XJ220, the TVR Speed 12, and the McLaren F1, to name but a few. I'm happy to say, though, this car doesn't fall into that category. This is a seriously rapid machine. The cruising speed on this particular model is around 280 under its own power, which is very good for the power, excellent for the price, and good for an older sports car. Because let's face it, for its age, there is very little that presents this car with a genuine threat from that same kind of era. Most of the vehicles that do present a threat for this car aren't even super sports cars. They would have to be supercars like the F40 or the XJ220. So this car is very, very good. Now overall, is it worth buying instead of the newer ZR1 or as well as? Well, I would definitely say it's worth buying at least as well as. For me personally, if I could only keep one of the two, I would definitely keep the C4 ZR1 over the C6, because that's just my personal preference. As far as sheer performance, of course it's not as quick. However, this is a fantastic super sports car. The handling is brilliant. It's remarkably forgiving for such a powerful and seriously rapid car. And overall, not only in a straight line, which is fairly obvious it's going to be good, but also around the track, pretty much any track at that, this is a brilliant super sports car to go for. And I feel like quite a few people have never even thought of buying this car, and many people I don't think have ever even driven it on Gran Turismo. It's a very easily forgotten or overlooked car. So if you haven't driven one before, I'd strongly recommend you give this car a chance. And as always, thanks for watching.